Sure, thanks, Laura. This is the Sierra Club Desert Committee is sponsoring this call, and we asked Laura to come on and talk about the solar in the desert in various places. This is also our first to see how reactions are among folks. We're probably going to get our own account and use the Zoom to replace our quarterly meetings, maybe up to twice a month, depending on folks that want to submit topics. I think we have a real good chance of getting the word out. This Zoom is getting pretty popular with a lot of folks. So that's about all I can say. You'll hear from us. And again, Laura, thank you. And Basin Range Watch, much appreciated.
Well, thank you very much, Terry, Craig, Tom, everybody at the Desert Committee for letting me talk about this project. So I'll just jump in here. So I'm going to share my screen, and just bear with me here because it's a little slow on my computer. Okay, let me. Come on. I have to do slide view or something here. I've done these before, but it's always, you don't memorize it. Let's see, view. Okay. Terry, can you see this? Is this
yes,
working?
I can.
Okay, great. All right.
Yep.
So, yeah, this is just the latest slew of desert projects in California and Nevada. And a lot of these pictures are Kevin Emmerich's, some are mine. So I'm going to talk about several of the new projects. And the latest one we just visited is Battle-Born Solar Project in proposed for on Mormon Mesa, Clark County, Nevada, near Overton and in the Moapa Valley region. Beautiful area, which I hadn't really explored before. This is, you can, I hope, see my cursor here, but here's the top of Mormon Mesa, and that's where the project is proposed. This is the Mormon Mountains. So it's a large project, 9,200 acres, 850 megawatts, and it would have lithium ion battery storage. And they say 850 megawatts, but I think they're meaning something like, you know, a certain megawatt hours that might last 2 or 3 hours after sunset. So, I mean, I don't think the battery storage is going to be that useful. Here's a map of the project, and this is the Muddy River right here, and then on the other side is the Virgin River, and you can see the little cliffs here of the mesa. And this project wants to go from almost one side of Mormon Mesa to the other. I mean, it's just gigantic. New transmission line over here to a substation. Here's I-15 from Las Vegas heading up to Mesquite. So it's just a gigantic project. Here's a closer map. There's a nice access road, dirt road from Overton here, and it cuts across the mesa. And Kevin and I have been exploring this for the last couple of weeks, and it's perfectly flat up here. It's kind of an amazing geologic feature. So, and there's a lot of routes that people take for Jeep tours and, you know, side-by-side tours, camping, recreation. It's much more heavily recreated than I thought, and pretty soft, light footprints too. There wasn't a lot of just routes going everywhere. I mean, there are these certain roads, and the developer, Arevia Solar, has said they're going to maintain access to all these roads here, which we're a little bit skeptical about. Here's some photos from, in fact, yesterday. This was sunset looking over the Virgin River from the edge of Mormon Mesa yesterday. On top, there's some, it's typical creosote bursage. Here's some mesquite, screwbean mesquite, but just beautiful views. I've never really been here before, but it was just stunning views. Again, this is looking off this sheer cliff to the Virgin River and the Little Virgin Mountains in the distance. Gold Butte National Monument you can see in a different direction. So here's another good picture of the flat top of this mesa. And on top, it's got some desert tortoise habitat. Here's an Indian rice grass bunch. And we've been in contact with a group of people who are trying to save the mesa from solar development, and they've been finding Gila monsters here fairly often. So desert tortoise, Gila monsters. Here's an ancient stream bed, just like a stranded fossil stream bed with perfectly rounded cobbles. It's actually a really interesting feature because it's the Muddy and the Virgin River eroded away what's actually a 40 million year old flat fossil landscape from the Miocene. So this flat top is an old ancient landform, and all the groundwater apparently was drained away from it. So it's kind of special geologically, I think, too. Even though when you get on top, it's, kind of flat and not much to look at. But here's just some more views. This was actually yesterday and then a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, it just looks like a painting here, looking off towards Gold Butte and Virgin River, moonrise over the Virgin River. So great biological soil crusts right here. So it was pretty pristine. It's not too harmed. Now I just threw this picture in because this is what they'll have to do to pound in the posts where they then attach the photovoltaic panels to. I mean, they have these giant pounding machines that just thousands of posts. This is from Ivanpah Valley long ago. And we have some concerns about this fossilized soil crust it's like a fossil soil. Are they just gonna crack it open with all these pounding machines? I mean, this hasn't started any environmental review yet, so we'll be asking about this. And a lot of townspeople, there are OHV events, hiking events there, and people are worried about, well, you're gonna maintain our route, but are we just gonna have solar panels, lining our Jeep trails? And the solar developer said, well, yeah, we'll leave your trail access, but you'll have 10 to 12 foot tall panels lining your trail. So this is what a 10 to 12 foot panel looks like. This is Pahrump Valley Solar Project. Whoops, this thing jumps. So last night we were actually invited to a meeting where Arevia solar representatives were talking to the town advisory board for Overton and the Moapa Valley region, wanting their support for developing the mesa. And I learned that this project's gonna face extremely stiff opposition from the local people. They've already formed Save Our Mesa Facebook page, websites. They've already made t-shirts. They had high school students bring signs and demonstrate. They have a big history here. It's like I think it is pretty much a Mormon community, and they've got cattle grazing legally on top. There's a grazing allotment. And so there's just actually a deep history here. People say they've lived here for 6 generations, and there's no way they're going to allow a solar project on top of Mormon Mesa. I mean, it's a heavily Mormon community. So, but we sat in their socially distanced town advisory board meeting. Here's the Arevia guy trying to sell his project to the local people, and I don't think he was successful at all. So, I mean, they have murals of the mesa in their community center here, and they had, I mean, it was I counted 150 people that spilled out into the night in the patio, and they had loudspeakers set up so you could hear. And they had, oops, if I move my mouse, it starts to jump. The poor Arevia Solar guy had to have police escort out, you know, because this is kind of Bundy territory that they're saying, well, you have to move your cows and we'll place a solar project on it. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But it was a very well organized opposition to any solar project on their mesa. You can see here's the t-shirt. I mean, they love this mesa. And they pointed out to the solar developer that their sign in their community center says, we are dedicated to maintaining a rural lifestyle and rural quality of life in our valley. So everything was peaceful, but I've never seen a local group of people so opposed to a utility scale solar project. So I think this developer is going to have some issues. Once again, here's this beautiful, lovely view. It's like a painting to me. So that's Battleborn Solar Project. It's just in the study phase. They haven't sent anything to the Bureau of Land Management yet, but we'll, you know, watch for that. So then down the road, also in Clark County, Nevada, the very large Gemini Solar Project, 7,100 acres, actually pretty dense tortoise habitat, has been approved. I mean, Kevin and I have been commenting on this for months and months now, the entire environmental review process, but it got approved. Record of decision was signed, and just a couple of weeks ago, mid-October, we checked on it, and there are the tortoise surveyors out, and I used to work in this job. I used to do this. Armies of tortoise biologists who go out there, and I think at this stage they're trying to tap tortoises out of their burrows and install like radio telemetry units. So we're pretty sure they won't start bulldozing this until next year, but they'll have to do tortoise translocation maybe next spring. So that's going to be a big issue, and it's actually really too bad that this one seems to be moving forward. But I don't know if any of you have been aware of the William Perry Pendley lawsuits and court decisions that have been coming down, where acting Bureau of Land Management Director Pendley apparently was illegally acting director under President Trump and got sued by the Montana governor and won in court. The court judge said that quite a lot of decisions made with land use plan amendments or resource management plan amendments under Pendley shall be set aside in Montana. So the Gemini Solar Project actually had a resource management plan amendment attached to it over changing visual resource classes. And so we're looking into the possibility that maybe Gemini could be set aside because it was under this illegal BLM director. So that's just a possibility, but the bulldozers will be coming next year. Here's a scene of the vast open space. This quite a lot of this area is slated to be solar panels, and they will, you know, mow the vegetation and then maybe allow some of the tortoises back in. But I'm going to show you some pictures of what you do when you keep the vegetation in a solar project. It's quite different. So we'll get to that. So now we're going to move to South Pahrump Valley, and there's a bunch of new solar projects here. And I forgot to put this one slide in, but some environmental organizations, especially the Nature Conservancy, recommended part of this area as a new solar energy zone or a development focus area long ago. And unfortunately, it's happening. There are applications in, and there are Joshua trees here. So, I mean, we're wondering about that. Joshua trees got pretty much full protection, not full protection, but got some protection in California under the California Endangered Species Act. But when you cross over the border Nevada, they're not protected. So here's just some of the biodiversity of the South Pahrump Valley. It's actually amazingly pristine and beautiful. Just last week we found a bighorn sheep horn and skull remnant just lying out there in the flat. Beaver tail cactus, desert horned lizard, Mojave yucca, very good tortoise habitat. They're going to have to move a lot of tortoises here. And the Mojave yuccas are very dense. This is one of the densest areas for Mojave yuccas. I mean, the Yellow Pine Project alone, they'll have to they'll shred over 90,000, maybe 80,000 Mojave yuccas. There's too many to move and transplant. So they're just going to shred them. And I just want to point out that desert night lizards live abundantly inside of the bark and the trunks of Mojave yuccas. And this is what's going to happen. Maybe some of you remember Ivanpah Valley, and some biologist took a video out there while they were monitoring the machinery. And this is just a giant mulching machine that comes down on each Mojave yucca and shreds it. So I hate to think of what's happening to the night lizards in there. But this is the standard. You can't put solar panels over Mojave yuccas, they're too tall. So here's the Yellow Pine Solar Project map. And I like this map because it shows the drainage basin near Mount Charleston in the Spring Range and all the debris flow that comes out onto this alluvial fan. And here in pink is the proposed Yellow Pine Solar Project, which is going to get flooded at times, but that's what they want. Oops. We went out in May of this year to the Yellow Pine Solar Project, and it was just beautiful. It had all those rains from the late winter, and it was just covered with flowers. This is a type of lilac sunbonnet, just little belly flowers all over the project site. So Kevin found these new projects. He's been in contact with BLM a lot, and they did reveal that there are these. It was hard to figure out where these were, but this is, my mouse will work. This is Nye County, and that's the line, and then this is Clark County. So Yellow Pine is in here. This is along the Tecopa Road. Pahrump City is up here, but there are the Rough Hat Solar Project, I don't know where they get these names, is the green and the purple, and then Copper Rays Project is this one in the middle here. More giant projects proposed for this, pretty pristine habitat. Here's another map, and these are sort of general maps, and I'm sure when the environmental review process starts, they'll modify them. They're just taking these sections and saying, we want our solar project somewhere here. But this is the alluvial fan coming out of Trout Canyon, and they're just Joshua trees scattered all through here, many Mojave yuccas. And then if you take a look here where I have my cursor, this is Mound Spring. And it's a little impacted because it's on the southern boundary of Pahrump. But Mound Spring, we went to visit it, is this famous archaeological feature of like a tufa spring formation. There's Mount Charleston. And there's actually a different part of this that still has water. If you can imagine that, there's still some flowing spring water in Pahrump. So I'm not sure that the solar developer realizes they shouldn't put a solar development on top of this. But here's what they do so far in Nevada and in California up until perhaps recently. But this is the Pahrump Valley Solar Photovoltaic Project. It's a small one. And they just uprooted the Joshua trees and dumped them. That's what they do in Nevada. And here's the fence with chain link fence and barbed wire. And here's a little tortoise door. They think they'll allow the tortoises to go back into this highly disturbed, crushed, flattened desert. Here's some pictures we took of the Sunshine Valley Solar Project under construction. It was a private land first solar project in Amargosa Valley, Nevada, sort of near the Amargosa River. But they have this was no roads, just pristine Mojave Desert scrub, and they built new roads, and then they started delivering semi-tractor trailer loads of equipment. I mean, it's kind of amazing. If the desert's flat enough, they just drive the trucks right out into the desert. So here they are constructing the photovoltaic plant, new parking lots, truckloads, bus loads of, workers. And the dust was just always coming off. We drove by this project a lot because it's south of where we live. Constant fugitive dust. Kevin made complaints to the county, to the state, and they were just ignored. I mean, we took these pictures to prove, here's our location and our date and time stamped photos of all the fugitive dust. And it was just, it kept happening. There was never any enforcement. There wasn't enough water to keep the dust down on this. So this is, this was not even a large project. So, and here's, this is Sunshine Valley project after almost finished completion of construction. And this is the state of the art. We maintain the creosote and the burr sage, and we don't grade it. So this is better than grading, but as you can see, they've been driving tractor trailer trucks over it and vehicles and pounding these posts in. And so this is the state of the art of, the desert will grow back under there. And then we have our chain link fence with, barbed wire. Okay, so that's unfortunately the situation in a nutshell, really quickly, of Pahrump Valley, which is, kind of a nice area. So it's a shame to, think it's going to get a de facto solar energy zone. So then really quickly, I wanted to talk about what's happening in the California desert in the region of the Desert Renewable Conservation Energy Conservation Plan, the DRECP, which was signed and approved in 2016. So this was a Zoom meeting with BLM, and it was the first couple of projects not grandfathered in to the DRECP. So these are the first projects that are now going to be in a development focus area, which was the most difficult thing to comment on because the development focus areas were in these detailed maps. They didn't have names. They were all scattered across the California desert. So, but this is after 4 years, we're finally getting the development focus areas with applications in them. So this is the Erica and Victory Pass solar projects, and it's right next to Desert Center, right next to all of the Desert Sunlight giant project that's built, Palin Genesis. So, I mean, we're adding now more to the poor Riverside County desert, this Colorado desert, Mojave Desert transition zone. Here's, you can see I-10. Here's Desert Center. Joshua Tree National Park is to the north. Whoops. So we're going to comment on these when they really get going, but it's very difficult to even find information on what's going to happen with these two projects because they're right next to each other and they're streamlined because the DRECP, of course, was this overarching big environmental review that was supposed to make it easier for the developers to just go in and develop, and that's what it's done. So these are streamlined into short environmental assessments instead of longer, more detailed environmental impact statements. And so we're just trying to, dig into the giant, vast DRECP and figure out what's even here. But they say in the DRECP, you're supposed to avoid microfill woodland, which is like Palo Verde, ironwood, mesquite, smoke tree. And you can see this was just a couple of weeks ago, they did this public meeting on Zoom. They're trying to avoid some parts of their project area. But then when you go on to the DRECP database and website, this yellow is the microfill woodland. And it's really hard, but I'm matching up this bend right here in I-10 is this bend. And so I see a lot more microfill woodland in this place than they do. So that'll be a comment. Here's Victory Pass in 2010, right around here. We just happened to go on it. This beautiful flat area here is now covered with solar panels, desert sunlight, right there. So this is a historic photo of the past. And here's an old map. Victory Pass is on the far left of this map right here. So that's where this new development focus area, these projects are going to be. Here's Palin Dry Lake. Palin Solar Projects is probably going to be built too. And all of these areas, Ford Dry Lake, Genesis is right here. Now this camp, I sent this out, this must have been 2010 or 2011, but we actually had a protest camp, and some of you might have been there with us, to protest building out solar in Chuckwalla Valley. You know, and we weren't successful, but. So here you go on the Data Basin website for the DRECP, and this is all the pink are the development focus areas that are now allow solar projects to be streamlined with minimal and short environmental reviews, just environmental assessments. So this little black part, I think, is where the Erica and Victor Pass projects are going to be, but you see they have a lot of room here to do more. The Lily Preserve, Desert Lily Preserve is somewhere right there. Here's just some pictures. There's the Palin Dunes. This is the Palin project site in 2010. It happened to be like a super bloom year for desert gold. There's a Sidewinder on the site of Palin. So it's just a beautiful area. So I'm going to actually kind of wrap this up a little bit quickly so we can have some discussions, but I'm just going to show some pictures now of, this is our Chuckwalla camp, we called it, where we got a whole bunch of people. We just protested on this overpass to the I-10, and we had the Aztec dancers come and bless us with this amazing performance, you know, with drums and rattles, and they lived in Blythe, and it's I mean, to me, this is an environmental justice issue. There's a lot of Latinx people that live in Blythe, a lot of Chemehuevi, Paiute, and they were just completely ignored. They said this is full of sacred landscapes to them, cultural trails, just a lot. There's village sites that were almost destroyed by the Genesis project, and they were just not listened to. I mean, it was actually kind of tragic. So, but those are some good memories that we did attract some attention. I guess we got some honks, but you know, here it is 10 years later, and we're still looking at developing the desert out here and back that we're looking at, this vast open space. Here's some of the signs. I know some desert survivors came to Sierra Club. So I think you were there, Ruth. Ruth Nolan was here. So, and then things you can do. I mean, there's so many things that Kevin and I have been trying to do, and it seems like we can just write comment letters until we're blue in the face, and they just, you know, mitigate around what we've said, and, you know, we'll build the project. So I just was trying to think of, I guess it's time to like really start getting a letter writing campaign, calling representatives. I mean, the lawmakers are the ones we might have to approach to stop putting utility scale solar out in our beautiful, pristine deserts, and really start pressuring them to do distributed generation, energy efficiency, include that in renewable portfolio standards. So, I mean, we're just kind of brainstorming, because Basin Range Watch doesn't have a budget to sue on all these projects and try to stop them. So that's just not an option to do that. So we're kind of maybe at the point where we're asking for more help from people to, like, you know, whatever the next administration might be, there might be a better Interior Secretary who's more into conservation. I mean, there's a 30 by 30, like a policy idea going around where we do have to maybe preserve 30% of the Earth's natural landscapes by 2030 in order to survive. And that's as important as climate change. So we just have to maybe convince more people that the California and Nevada deserts are worthy of conservation. I mean, they store carbon, as Pat Flanagan has so well told us. Okay, so I'm done with my project here, I think. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop the screen share here and maybe try to unmute people, and maybe if you have questions or discussion, that would be great, because this is basically the next wave of solar projects, and they're going to keep coming. And I haven't even gotten into how continuing to build all these projects just adds to grid congestion and the need to build longer, bigger transmission lines, which spark wildfires. Lithium ion battery storage, baking out in 118, 120 deserts is actually very inefficient. It doesn't, the lithium battery banks, which are like in these big buildings, have to have air conditioning. They have to air condition the lithium battery banks out here in the Chuckwalla Valley or on Battleborn, which gets to 122, to keep the lithium chemical reaction going. So it's just actually a really inefficient process. Okay, so. All right, now let me figure out how to unmute people.
Laura, Craig Deutsche here.
Oh, hi.
I think people can individually unmute themselves at the lower left corner of their screen.
Okay.
There's a microphone down there and you can turn yourself on or off.
Perfect. I had it on global mute, but I guess that didn't work. So, but that's good. Okay.
Laura, Terry Fruin, in the event of a Biden win, do we have a list of candidates that we would like to see put in as Secretary of DOI?
Yeah, you know, Udall, I've heard is interested in, you know, old Senator Udall, but that's a good idea. We should talk about, you know, friendlier candidates and then suggest them to, you know, the Biden administration.
Laura, Craig Deutsche again. I keep looking for information on the environmental costs, carbon costs of creating lithium batteries and the carbon costs of disposing of used panels. These ought to be accounted in the in assessing usefulness of solar for climate change. I have not been able to find good websites or data on this. Do you know of any?
That's a really good question, Craig. And we do have a contact. He's a professor at San Jose State University, Dustin Mulvaney, who specializes in recycling of solar panels, toxins associated with that, life cycle issues. And I don't think that there is a website, but he does have a book. So I'm going to make some notes and I'll look up his books and put them on the desert list, because he's, I think, one of the main experts.
Laura, Dustin Mulvaney wrote for the Desert Report a couple of years ago, and I have the information. I will contact him myself. I'm obviously thinking of Desert Report in the future.
Good.
Laura, this is Judy. I sat in on the Wildlife Energy and Community Coalition meeting today, and the solar issue is rearing its ugly head nationwide. There are huge problems in Maryland and everywhere else that you can think of back east where they're leveling forests to put in solar panels. And a lot of these states don't have any requirement for decommissioning these projects in 30 years or recycling the solar panels. And it's just like everybody's on the gold rush for the solar projects before the ITC expires, which they'll probably extend it. But they're building in wetland areas back east. I forget the classifications, but a lot of the areas that they're proposing are actually wetlands, disrupting stream flows, underground conduits for the collection. They're using a process similar to fracking with high pressure water and sand. This is breaking out. They call it a frack out, and it's spreading over farm fields and roads and springs and you name it. It's happening everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and they're wanting to build them in places like flyways. I know you talked about there's a solar project in the Dakotas, one of the Dakotas, and it's in the area of whooping cranes, which is a rare, very rare bird. And I mean, I didn't talk about that in my presentation, but the avian solar effect is where this vast reflective blue surface looks like a lake to many birds, and they actually, come in and they try to land and then they crash. And grebes are incapable of taking off except from water. So they've found many grebes, which apparently just fly across the desert regularly, between Salton Sea and the Sea of Cortez and the Colorado River. And then they crash onto the solar projects and then they can't fly back up. They need to run across the surface of the water. So, and I mean, there's stories too. I mean, we've heard stories of at Desert Sunlight Solar Project of a flock of maybe 50 American white pelicans coming to try to land on Desert Sunlight, and then they were never seen again. So, and the trouble is we believe the solar developers in the DRECP, they're supposed to monitor for 3 years and report to the agencies concerning bird mortality. And then apparently after that, they don't need to. So a lot of this data is, I think, not being given to the public or even recorded.
So this is Mike Garabedian. The DRECP is a combination federal habitat conservation plan and California Natural Communities Conservation Plan. And so that you raised the immediate question, what, if anything, is the California Fish and Wildlife Department doing out there on both proposed projects and then ones that are supposed to be monitoring and so forth?
That's a good question, and I should have put that in my slide. So the federal lead agency is BLM, and they're doing a simple environmental assessment. And the California Department of Fish and Wildlife is the lead state agency, and they are doing a full environmental impact report. So I'm actually going to write more detailed comments to California Department of Fish and Wildlife, because they're writing a big, giant, long, EIR under California Environmental Policy Act. So it's sort of a little bit different in how the state and the feds are handling it. So we shall see. But this is the first time this is being done. So it's sort of unprecedented territory.
What do you know? What office that's handled out of by Fish and Wildlife, State Fish and Wildlife?
There is an email to, and I'll make a note and share that on the desert list. There is an email to send your comments in on those, Erica. So I'll put that on the desert list.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is Pat. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Pat.
Hi. I just wanted to mention for probably the umpteenth time that all of those solar projects that are planned from Desert Center all along there and then along the I-10, that's all on a sand transport path. I've seen haboobs down there that are thousands of feet in the air of dust. And there is no monitoring of any kind for the particulate matter done by the Mojave Desert AQMD. They're totally deficient in monitoring, and they don't require that the project monitor. So anything that looks at, you know, some kind of standard, the standard will have been achieved at a monitoring location that is far to the west of these projects. And I did write an article in the Desert Report a couple years ago, and since then I've been down and looking at things like the Palin project, and the DRECP never analyzed dust situation correctly. But it's all going to, nobody be breathing downwind.
Yeah, good points, Pat. We'll try to put the dust, you know, issues into our comments to both BLM and CDFW.
Well, talk to me. I'll get you, you know, we can work together on that.
Okay, good.
And
Laura, I have a question. This is Barry Bolton. You and I have never met. It seems to me that you really have to have congressional allies, otherwise it's impossible to fight organizations like the BLM. But don't we have any congressional allies? I mean, that seems to be, it always seems to me as I look across the legislative world and the desert, that actions happen when a legislator becomes an owner or something. And I don't hear any talk of any congressional ownership here. Is there anybody that you could say is a friend in the Congress?
Well, Dianne Feinstein supported all of this. I mean, as far as I know, we're getting no recognition that we need better renewable energy policies that put the solar projects in, you know, already disturbed ground and not pristine habitat. But yeah, that's you hit the nail on the head, because I think we're at the point where we need help from you all, you know, as constituents, to just start writing Congress better and say, you know, we do need friends. And coming from Kevin and I for 10 years, it's just not enough. You know, I think we need more of a groundswell to get people to realize, you know, we can't just keep destroying our public lands. Our public lands are not renewable. So that's kind of the message I try to send to Congress. We're going to use up these public lands with, you know, the massive square miles of solar that people are planning.
Well, you know, I live in McClintock's area, and when I get responses from him, they're pretty stupid. There's no point talking to people like him, but there must be some intelligent, rational congressman somewhere we could actually talk to. It seems to me that's what we have to focus on. I mean, there's no point in me doing anything with McClintock. It's a waste of my time and his time. Yeah,
I tried talking to Raul Grijalva when he actually came to Las Vegas, you know, and I'm in Nevada. He's the, you know, chair of the House Natural Resources Committee, and he unfortunately made a comment that he supports all the big solar, even though he's really good on a lot of other things, you know, with conservation. So it's been hard. I mean, I can't think of one right now. I guess we need to work on, you know, the young and up and coming Congress people and educate them better.
Yep, I think you're right.
Well, I've been reading the state NCCP for 322 square miles of an area in Placer County they want to develop. And so I'll reread it for some teeth the state might be able to bring to this, if there is something.
That would be good. Yeah, share it on the desert forum.
well, wouldn't it be good just to have the state start counting rooftops?
Yeah, you know, there have been studies too where Kevin and I have been in contact with a UC Davis professor, and right now I'm just not remembering her name, but I will. And she's been studying the capacity of, like getting mapping technology to map cities and rooftops that are capable of handling solar. So, I mean, the tools are there. Parking lot solar structures could have 11,000 megawatts in California. It just seems like there's some sort of threshold of willingness of agencies and big NGOs to just say, okay, enough is enough on the desert. We've built enough on deserts. It's time to really look into distributed generation. But I think our problem is the utilities don't make enough profit, right, on rooftop solar. They want to have those remote central station power plants, and they can charge the ratepayer to build the transmission line to the load center. And they haven't figured out how to make that kind of profit off of rooftop solar. So, I mean, there's a big, problem trying to get around the utilities, which have big lobby money. So that's what I've seen over the past 10 years.
Well, another place to look is the California State Lands Commission, because they manage the educational set-aside lands. Those all that I forget what is. The township has several of those each. They dot the desert, and I know when I went there on some desert-related issue, I found that there was one staff person who was wildly for DRECP and another one who was not at all happy about it. They help to fund teachers' pensions, so there's mixed purposes in the state management of those lands. But and the three people running it are I think the treasurer, another elected official statewide, and then the Department of Finance. So maybe that's something else to at least watch I'll get back on and watch their meetings to see if they're doing anything on this stuff and if there's potential.
This is Pat. I just went to a scoping or no, Zoom scoping. They have a 3,000 acre project on pretty much virgin land that is just south of Barstow and north of Lucerne Valley. Horrible project. And so we'll be watching that. And that land, actually, they traded BLM for something else. And BLM, they asked if they could put solar on it. And BLM said, oh, no problem. So they did the trade, and now they're going to get a lot of flack. They got a lot of negative comments in the scoping, but that's another one to watch.
You know the name of that, Pat?
Stagecoach.
Oh, right, Stagecoach. Yeah, okay, I knew about that one. Right. Yeah, we're gonna write
Hey,
comments.
Pat, this is Kevin. Is that on BLM land? Or is
No, it was
private
BLM land.
land?
It's not anymore. It's on state lands.
Okay, thank you.
I can send you one of the odd things is they requested that Lucerne Valley respond to them about environmental justice in the area. I'll send you the letter. And we got our usual Superior map maker to do some extraordinary maps, looking at watersheds and drainages and air quality, and because they're totally on sand transport that'll blow like crazy when they scrape it off. So I'll send you the letter.
Good, thanks. Yeah, the Erica and Victor Valley projects kind of impinge on the sand transport corridor in Chuckwalla Valley too. So I don't know what the mitigation is for that. Yeah, they like to build projects.
There is no mitigation.
Yeah.
And there should be a huge demand for monitoring.
Well, any other discussion points? I mean, this is really good though. I mean, it's good to just have, a virtual discussion on this big renewable energy push, because I don't see it getting any less. If Trump wins, it'll be the same as the push we're having now, which is bad. If Biden wins, it might be even worse for the California desert and Nevada desert especially. I mean, the Nevada desert has no planning. You could say at least the DRECP does set aside some areas for conservation, but the southern Nevada desert is just wide open. So I don't see a good administration with respect to desert conservation. So it's time to, up our planning here for trying to educate the lawmakers and the deciders.
They all come from the East Coast and they haven't been west.
Yeah, and I've even lobbied a lot of them in 2011 to try to push rooftop solar, and boy, you just have to keep going back year after year, and one trip isn't going to do it.
So it might also, in one of these group meetings, be worth analyzing the 2 recent reports put out by the Nature Conservancy, which really and it's really a shame.
We lost you there, Pat. What were the 2 reports?
One of them is called The Power of Place. And there's that's a technical report that's associated with that. I can send you that information. And then Riverside, UC Riverside and San Bernardino County, one of the Board of Supervisors, they're looking at Riverside and San Bernardino County as Solar Valley. Which is a little distressing.
Yeah, talk about that more, Pat. I haven't heard about that. Yikes. Okay.
Well, there was a meeting. I can send you the link that you can go find it on the web.
Okay.
And they don't talk about, what's really weird is that they don't talk about the negatives that go on if you're going to put these in, and they know them. And one of the hugest ones is environmental justice for all the communities that are now surrounded, or there's plans for them to be surrounded by solar, and they will lose all their property values because they'll lose the aesthetics, they'll lose their air quality, and any kind of tourist attraction, that kind of thing. So that's becoming a big issue, is environmental justice. And so I would watch out. And that's that was a big thing for Stagecoach. We'll see how it works.
Are
Okay.
any of these projects, are any of the projects getting Energy Commission authority, like Ivanpah, I think was one of theirs?
No.
California Energy Commission, they, for the Stagecoach and all the ones in Lucerne Valley, which are several thousand acres, and the Daggett Solar, which is 3,500 acres, all of those require a new substation, and that gets CEC approval. It gets planned by the developers. So NextEra, for instance, has got it in a plan for their Ord Mountain. And it's also going to be in the plan for Stagecoach. But it's CEC that has to approve the substation.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, all photovoltaic projects were decided to not be under California Energy Commission review because they do steam turbine power projects.
Well, this is Kevin Emmerich. I have a comment. I want to make a comment about other environmental organizations. You mentioned in your talk about 3 new solar projects in the southern Pahrump Valley, and those happen to be in a proposed new, what they call designated lease area, but most of you know those as solar energy zones. And that was proposed by 4 environmental organizations. All of these groups do know better. They know the details here. We've been talking about this, and so have they, for over a decade now. We have a problem here in Nevada, though, and I won't mention names. I don't want to do that, but when they are really quiet about any big solar project like Gemini that's going to impact over 1,000 desert tortoises, the press notices. The press notices when none of them talk. And the press wonders why and sometimes assumes that the environmental impacts are not as bad. So the green groups play a very big part in this. And as citizens or members or whatever you folks are, contact these groups and tell them to get more involved in this. Tell them not to be afraid to get involved in this. Thanks.
Hi, it's Lisa from Save Our Mesa. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Lisa.
Yes.
Hi. I had a hard time getting on and I missed some of the Battleborn. I got to see some pictures, but I couldn't get the audio going or the video going. But I have a question. You talked about some other cities that were being encroached on by solar farms. Can you are they up and running already or just still being built?
Yeah, they're up and running. And by the way, Lisa, I will make this into a PDF and I can send it to anyone who wants to email me. And I will also, this is being recorded, so I'll upload it to a YouTube channel so you can watch it at your leisure in the future.
Okay.
So, but yeah, like the community of Blythe, California on the Colorado River, they had this most beautiful Palo Verde Mesa, and it's different from Mormon Mesa, but it had those little round desert pavement cobbles all over it, like it was a ancient terrace of the Colorado River. So it's like a fossil mesa, and it was just beautiful. Right next to Blythe, now it's completely covered with thousands of acres of photovoltaic panels. I mean, I haven't gone back to see it or to photograph it because it would kind of break my heart to see. I mean, I drove around there and hiked, and there was little stringers of microfill woodland, and it's all gone. They didn't leave any vegetation on that one. They bulldozed it. So I'm sure there are dust issues for the local communities, and we're in contact with some of the people in Blythe, and they're heartbroken too about this. So it can happen. I mean, there are plenty of examples where they have been built. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I'm interested in that, and it probably got discussed in the part I missed, we've got Gemini coming in on one side of us and Battleborn coming in on the other. And they're both going to be the largest solar farms in the nation, and we're between them with only 20 miles of space. And I can't find any studies where I can show what it's doing to those areas, to the residents, to the environment, the temperatures, anything like that. But we also are going to be dealing with the fugitive dust from both of those projects. Hopefully they're not going to be built at the same time, but Gemini is to the west of us with a prevailing westerly wind. We worry about that. And then Battleborn is right on top of us. It's 1.5 miles from Overton. It's not 46 miles northeast of Las Vegas. I mean, it is technically, but it's 1.5 miles from our city. So those are some really concerns, really big concerns of ours. And I did catch part of your talk about some fugitive dust issues you had in there. So I would really like to get a copy of this, to look into it more. And I'm also interested in talking to the person who has some lithium battery information, because the size of this solar farm going up there, there's going to be a lot of lithium batteries.
Yeah, definitely, Lisa. We'll be in touch about this, and I'll share what
Okay.
Dustin Mulvaney knows about lithium. And I mean, the trouble is, I think a lot of people haven't even studied this yet, and I see rural communities taking the brunt of the solar build out, you know, the wind projects, the solar projects, the West Mojave Desert. I used to live in California City briefly. And I mean, that's just one big, gigantic development focus area. And they are building projects on private land, on public land. And I can't imagine the amount of dust. There's probably valley fever has risen, but I don't know if anyone's studying
Yep.
this. We need more,
Well, that's,
people to
you know,
look into it.
well, I looked, I've been searching for any comparison, anything to compare the situation we're going to be into, even if it's a smaller solar field area around the town, just something, you know, that we can base some kind of study on, because I can't find any. So, and I've looked, I went worldwide. I went through the top 15 solar farms, where they were, what they were near. There's no studies what these large solar farms are going to do to the area. That I just can't find any kind of comparable,
Yeah, I
you know,
know.
for all
the
the
trouble.
for all the aspects, you know. And when I questioned him in the meeting the other night, he just said, "Oh, it's not gonna affect you," and that was his response. I'm not buying that.
There is actually quite a lot happening with solar around communities in San Bernardino County.
Okay, I will look
So,
into that. Okay,
and
and I was, let's see.
if you email me, I can, we can start talking about that. This is Pat Flanagan. Email is patflanagan29@gmail.com.
Okay, Pat Flanagan, FLA.
Right, it's up there on the screen. 29, because I live around 29 Palms, at Gmail. And we are, and California and environmental justice is beginning to get on this. So it's important to bring it up.
Okay.
There are also
All right.
a few articles there about fugitive dust from solar projects from LA County. One of them called, I believe it's called the Antelope Valley Solar Ranch, but that had such a major dust issue, they had to close I-15. So that was a really big one. And the other articles to look for are about an area called the Carrizo Plain. The solar project construction there, it was called Topaz, and it sent home 40 workers with valley fever. It was really significant. And I will email those to you. I'll email those articles to you. Thanks.
Yeah, I would love to have those, and I appreciate that.
And we might learn to talk about fugitive dust as PM10 and PM2.5, because those are what are regulated by the EPA and should be regulated by, I don't know, does Nevada do any air quality monitoring at all? I couldn't find much.
Yes, there is air quality monitoring.
Good.
But not enforcement in the case of the Amargosa Valley. I mean, Kevin can tell you stories of calling up the agency that should be telling the solar developer to stop having the particulate matter rise into the air every week during construction, and it never stopped. So I think that's a problem. I mean, it's good to have more people here like looking and reporting. I think there just hasn't been enough citizen monitoring going on.
Well, there's a wonderful website that
It also
people
needs
can
to be pointed out that that project up there in
Triple Air.
oh,
Go ahead, Pat. Hold on. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
I'm sorry, I interrupted. Um, because there isn't any really good monitoring going on out in the desert at all, we're now relying on the devices you can install at your house called Purple Air. And if you go on the Purple Air website, there's a very good maps that you can follow. And that's how we've been able to show, for instance, that when it looks great in Barstow or Victorville and you're choking to death in Newberry Springs, you can see that on the map. As because these are what they measure, I think, every 10 minutes. So it's worth getting familiar, and if you're in a good place, save your money and buy one and put it on your house. Mine is Desert Heights out of 29 Palms.
I was going to comment, Judy, in Nevada, that the El Dorado Valley solar projects that are just ongoing, it's like a cancer down there. For a number of months, a few years ago, I was calling Clark County Health District every week because every time I drove by there were no water trucks and the dust was just going everywhere. And they'd say something like, well, that's coming off the playa. And I said, no, it isn't. It's coming off the construction site. And they won't take citizen photos. They won't take citizen reports. They have to be there in person. And of course, most of the construction was done Friday afternoon through Sunday, just gangbusters. But I never tried the state. I only went with Clark County.
Maybe we should start reporting to EPA and to, well, we have the California Air Resources Board. I don't know what Nevada has.
That's something to look into, Pat.
Very little.
But EPA, maybe. That's something to look into. I'll look into that.
Yeah, because it's not working out here. And water doesn't work. If you go to the Owens Valley, they found out what does work is 4 inches of like 1 inch gravel. That keeps the dust down.
But we're talking about 9,180 acres in Battleborn. I just don't see how they're going to even possibly pull that off.
No.
And that he also said, well, I did find out they will not be granted a well permit. They're going to have to truck their water in, and there are no water shares available in this area of Nevada. And I'm not sure about the rest of the state, but in Clark County, there are no available water shares. They're going to have to truck their water in from another state. So, you know,
this is good.
Yeah, the dust issue is disconcerting, you know, to know that they're not going to have the ability to gravel 9,180 acres or even keep it wet with trucked in water. So, like I say, the more I look into the fugitive dust, the more that's really concerning to me.
Yeah, there's huge problems.
Well, hopefully we'll get it. Or actually, EPA.
Well, as we've discovered in the Amargosa Valley, it's, you know, that old saying, it's easier to ask forgiveness later. I think that's what we've been seeing, unfortunately. So, I mean, maybe we need to get a citizens monitoring team together and just network with each other and keep telling the agencies and the deciders and the lawmakers our reports. Maybe it just needs to be more numbers of people reporting this.
Which might then get the newspapers to take your pictures, that they'll take the photos.
That's been a really, exactly, Pat, because that's been we've had not a sympathetic group of reporters in the desert, either California or Nevada. I keep sending them, you know, anything, press releases, tips, and they just never report on these things. It's all good. Solar is all good in the tortoise habitat. Tortoises will be okay.
We are going to be on NPR next week, though, so we got some reporters interested. So there is some hope.
Well, oh, tell me more about that.
It's just an interview with the Nevada NPR. They wanted to know about solar projects. They specifically asked me where are the other groups, but I did manage to give them some good information about 3 of the major ones that are going on, including this new one, Battleborn.
Do we know when it's going to be aired?
Oh, not exactly. I think next week sometime.
Okay.
Laura, Craig Deutsche. I had an article with the KCET Public Radio in Los Angeles about the border wall, but I may have some connection there. Would it be useful? They might be interested in solar in California. Would it be useful for me to suggest you to them as a possible interview or a writer?
Yes.
Do you know enough? Do you have time to follow up?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, or Kevin, suggest Kevin Emmerich too, but yeah, either of us, that would be great. And that's worked sometimes to get somebody else besides Kevin or me to contact the reporter, and the reporter goes, oh, there's not just 2 people interested in this. So yeah, please do, Craig. Thank you.
I've written for them twice, so I may have some a little bit of at least they will read my email. I don't know if they will reply to it. I'll give it a try.
Fair enough.
So we've been begging for any kind of media coverage out here on this Battleborn project, and we can't get anybody to bite. And I have knocked down doors, and we're not their agenda right now. They're not interested in us right now. They're interested in COVID or election. We're not on their chart, so they don't want to deal with us right now. And we have got to get some media attention on this. Do you have any suggestions that we could try?
Sometimes we've had luck actually getting a group of, the high school students and everybody else and having a big protest with signs out on the mesa on some day. And then before you do that, you tell all the reporters that we're going to be having this big, rally, peaceful rally on the mesa. And on occasion, we have gotten some reporters, and other issues I've been dealing with. So, I mean, that's an idea. Plan a big rally, peaceful demonstration, educational hike, invite the press, invite the Las Vegas Review-Journal. It's, it's worth a try.
Yeah, I tried. Yeah, I tried reaching out to them, and they weren't interested either. But this is something that's in a very preliminary planning. But I think we have found an ally here. Our Clark County Commissioner seems to be behind us on stopping Battleborn, and is requesting that we do a town hall meeting here in Overton sometime after the election and hopefully before the end of the year. And she claims she has some science that will probably stop or prove that Battleborn can't go up on the mesa. When I get this town hall meeting set up, if you guys are interested, I'm not sure if I can live stream that. Maybe I can get somebody to do that for the meeting, but I'm really interested in what she has to say. But she does seem to be an ally on this.
That's really good. Yeah, cultivate that and let us know.
Yeah, Lisa, this is Judy Bendorf. I found an ally that doesn't have a huge distribution, but that is Thomas Mitchell. And he used to be the editor of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He now has a blog called Fourth Estate. And he actually came out to Searchlight, took pictures, wrote half a dozen different blogs about the fight against Searchlight Wind. And he's involved with some of the other rural papers throughout Nevada.
Well, I'm hoping after the election, we can probably get somebody's attention out here. Something. We've got to get something out here. So, like I say, I'm hoping that Marilyn Kirkpatrick comes through, and I'm thinking that that might get us some media attention as well if she will stand up out loud and make her statement. I do know she wants to address our community on it.
Good.
Yeah, if the other local, more localized papers out there, I remember the one in Delta, Utah published, on the MX missile, published a Pentagon memo they didn't want out. But those local editors and publishers were really important in that fight.
Well, we did have the progress there doing an article. It'll probably come out on next Wednesday's paper.
Okay, well, this is a really good discussion, and it's hard to like run one of these things and read the chat box, but I see there's some actually very good chat conversations and questions and comments, and I know Zoom allows me to save the chat as a file, so I will do that, and maybe we can continue some of this discussion on the Desert Forum. And you know, Lisa, we'll send you. You should get on this. Who's the person who can add somebody to our desert list? Is it Craig, Terry?
You add yourself. If you go to the back to the desert report, look inside. I believe it's on the inside of the back page, but it's instructions on how to do it are there. They seem to work for most people. If things fail, then it's Stacy Goss who is the owner, and you would contact her. Her email, if I will put her email on the chat now if the instructions in the desert report don't work.
Thank you, Craig. And I will send you, Lisa, the instructions to add yourself to the list that we've all been on for a while, and we try to talk about this stuff regularly, so we can all stay in communication.
Yeah, I'm really interested. Kat and I both are really new at this. We jumped into this head first, not even having a clue what we were getting into, but knew what was happening wasn't right here. So, you know, we're still in the learning curve. Kevin has been extremely helpful to us, helping us strategize, but I would really like to get more involved in this group. We have a email. It's saveourmesa@gmail.com. I would love to get some more information on this, and I would like to get involved in the group just to kind of help us along as we learn.
Okay, good. Yeah, thanks. I mean, I was so impressed with Mormon Mesa. I've been there, you know, a couple of times now. And it's just so beautiful and wild and open. So yeah, we gotta educate people on that. So I think I'm gonna wrap up here. We're almost an hour and a half, and it's been a really good conversation. And I don't have everybody's email. That was a question, because I just didn't do it that way. I've done that before, where you have to send your request to join. And I wanted this to be more open, just where anybody can drop in anonymously. So we don't have a list of everyone who's been on, but I see most of, you know, my friends and people who've been on. So I have a lot of people's emails, a lot of Desert Committee people here. So the list we were just talking about will be useful, but I think we can continue this on the list, the Desert Forum, and I will try to answer any other questions that are in the chat here, and I'll save the chat in case, you know, people wanted more information on things. So, I mean, anything else before we say good evening?
No, thank you very much. This has been very informative. I'm sorry I missed the start of it trying to get logged on.
It's okay. I mean, Zoom is Zoom, so but I will, Lisa, I'll specifically send you when I upload this to YouTube. This will be on YouTube at some point, if I can figure that out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Laura,
I would love to watch the whole thing.
Laura, Terry Fruin, just thanking you very much for a wonderful presentation, and thanks everybody for coming on. And like I say, we're looking into getting our own Zoom account, so people are welcome to email me about possible topics for presentation. I would like definitely to Lisa to say contact us on the forum, as well as Craig Dorsey on Desert Report. I really feel we've got to start leaning towards a focus on what's happening in Nevada. I think it's an absolute crime what's going on there in terms of this solar, mega solar, as we have all felt for years in our desert. So again, thank you, Laura, and thanks everyone for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Hey,
Terry.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Terry.